Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with the Women's Motorsports Network coming to you from my office in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And I have a very special guest. Her name is Lisa Hunsiker. Did I pronounce your last name right?
Not quite. Hunsicker.
Hunsiker. Okay, so I
Yeah.
grew up in West Central Illinois, and there were that last name was familiar there, and it was Hunsiker.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay,
It
all
depends
right.
on where you're from. That's all. Just
I know, absolutely is. So I apologize for that.
no
Um,
worries.
but Lisa just got home from work, and so we're gonna have a nice visit here about her and how she got involved in motorsports. So, Lisa, would you please start by just sharing a little bit about yourself? We know you live in Colorado, but where you live, maybe what you do for work, your family, your pets, whatever you want to share, and then we're going to talk about how you got interested in motorsports.
Sure, sure. So I am originally from Fort Lauderdale. And so the great part about that is that there's good weather all around and there's lots of fun things to be doing there. So I grew up in South Florida and then have migrated west. In my training, I'm a surgeon, and so I practice here in South Denver. And so as far as motorsports, so driving fast came early and probably very illegally.
Yeah.
Of just I mean, I can remember taking my parents' car when I was just a teenager, and like, oh, we're going to we're going to the movies, and going up to Fort Lauderdale Beach and going up and down the strip, and then certainly anybody who wanted to go fast just taking this old Chevy Caprice Classic and seeing how
Uh-huh.
fast it was going to go, and doing that. And my dad had a 1972 Corvette when I was a little girl, and so that's kind of what we grew up in. And of course, that was well before you had to wear seatbelts. So my
Mhm.
mom and dad and my sister and I all plowed into the Corvette and went off to go do stuff. So I mean, I think I was exposed to a sports car early. And so, growing up, that was always something that I had wanted. And interestingly, as I had finished, right after I finished my residency and went into private practice, I had talked to the Chevy dealer and custom ordered, a 2003 um, beautiful Corvette. And I called my dad from the lot and I just kept revving the engine. He's like, I can't hear you. There's like some background noise. I can't. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. What? You can't hear? It's like, that's the brand new Corvette.
Yeah.
so, so that kind of, started me. And then, I've driven BMWs. And then finally I bought a Porsche 911 in 2012 and started, just entry level high performance drivers education. I think how, a lot of people can come through into motorsports and just love that. And the thing that bothered me about that is I loved going fast. It was beating up my car. And so it's like, I think I need a dedicated car for this and one that has a lot more safety equipment. I knew I
Mhm.
wanted to have a Hans device and a harness and have a roll cage. And, we had a very unfortunate at the club race at that time. And this is, maybe around, 2013, 2014 ish. And we had a very seasoned racer who had a wreck, had an in-car event, and then crashed the car, hit the wall, exploded the car. And because I'm a medical, healthcare worker and surgeon, um, my wife is also a trauma surgeon, so the two of us were immediately whisked down to the scene and we took care of this guy. And that really kind of caught me off guard, and it was doing what we know how to do very well, but it was also a very personal connection now. And
Right.
like, is this something that I really want to do? And if I really want to do this, I really need to have all the safety equipment and stop playing around with
Yeah.
speed bumps, and it really it gives you so much more, I think, respect for even street driving. So yeah, from that point, I just kept going and got my competition licenses, and so I have run NASA and SCCA and PCA and WRL. So just if you got a race, I'm happy to be in it.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And your dad kind of gave you the bug, even though you were little and he wasn't a racer. He still gave you your love for cars. It sounds like.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's interesting because that's a conversation that's still this is God, like 50 years later, and we're still having these conversations, and it's a
Hmm.
wonderful conversation that he and I both talk about all the time. And the
Yeah.
first person that when I get on track and when I come off a track, I'm talking to my folks of like, here's where I am, this is what I'm doing. And then when I'm coming off the track, well, here's what the situation was. And, they're watching on Race Monitor or Race Hero or,
Yeah.
on YouTube, depending on the broadcasting. And so it's been really great because you can share that love. I think, I know
Hmm.
my immediate family always travels, our son and my wife do. Um, we have my son is graduating next month, and
Huh?
my folks are coming out for the graduation, but it's also the same weekend as the PCA race in Hastings, Nebraska. So everyone is hauling up to Nebraska for a weekend at the track. So I think it's something
Nice.
that we all love and enjoy together.
And don't you find that in motorsports more than a lot of other sports, excuse me, that it is a family sport,
Mhm.
where and it kind of goes generation to generation very often. And we can look back and say, oh, my uncle raced, my grandpa raced, or my dad got me interested in cars. And, you don't see that with really any other sports that I can think of. Yeah, my dad played football, and so my son played football, but it's just not the same because it's usually such a limited time where
Right.
racing is so generational for so long. And so, um,
Exactly. Well, and the funny part is it's not just getting into the car and driving, it's everything about,
right.
taking care of the car, hauling the car, prepping the car, crewing the
Yes.
car. So, yeah, and there's so many layers that, everyone can be involved.
Hmm.
And, the great part about it is, there's certainly always there's that danger, but every person who's working with you, like your family, has that vested interest to make sure
Yeah.
everything is just right for you because they know the safety issues. And so I think
Yeah.
for us, it always feels way better to have someone who is right there, and they know that you've got to come home and everything has to be perfect.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And, you know, um, I know that when you have a race team and people that help, you have to learn to trust them. But there's some things that you only trust certain people to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, for
Exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
So you're a surgeon by day,
Uh-huh.
trade. What do your colleagues think about you racing?
It's really interesting because there's the spectrum is so broad. I have another surgeon who I compete against, and he is an orthopedic surgeon. We also have a neurosurgeon. So I think in general, I think surgeons kind of get this because it's very precision work. There's definitely risk. You've got to be very methodical about it, and we're I think very good at hyper focusing, so it's really easy to make that transition,
Uh-huh.
from OR to the cockpit. But once you start talking about it with other people, there's so many people who are just flabbergasted and um, oh my god, that's so dangerous, and um, just they're so afraid that you're going to get hurt, and but there's also a lot of people who are just in general afraid of driving.
Yeah,
And so they really feel like, well, this is something I would never consider to do. So why would anybody want to do that? And so
right.
it's always interesting. And then, of course, the next layer that always comes up is, yeah, but you're a woman. How is
Yeah.
that? Like, can you do that? One, is it allowed? Which, it's a funny
Well, it
thing.
didn't used to be
Yeah.
years ago.
Right. And so I'm like, no, no, it's totally allowed. And then, well, is it fun? Yeah, it's fun. And is it, uh, you know, well, how does everybody treat you? And I think the one, one of the most impressive things to me about motorsports, at least in my experience, has been racers are racers, and there's not gender racing. There's just
No.
racing, and there's also racers help racers.
Yes.
And you can be my competitor, but if my car has a broken radiator and you have a radiator, you're
Mm-hmm.
not only going to give me that radiator, but you're going to help me put it on so that we
Right.
can go out and race together. And I
Yeah.
think that I have been met with such warmth and generosity from really all of the different racing leagues. I've never
Yeah.
had an issue with that. And so it's interesting because I think people find that to be surprising.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, we've been doing it long enough that it's the expectation.
Right.
When we were leaving to go to Topeka, I had to load up everything Wednesday night, and my wife was on trauma call, which means you have to be in the hospital for 24 hours. So she couldn't help me load up. And one of the SCCA racers, I ran into that day, and I was lamenting about I have to get the rig, but I can't get the hitch on by myself because it's an extender. And he drove from the hospital to my house and helped me put the hitch on. And it was so funny because everyone was so shocked by that.
Yeah.
And I was like,
But we're not.
we're not. I'm like, well, no, he's a racer. And when you talk to people like, wow, that's a really good friend, but when you tell a racer that, they're like, well, yeah, I mean, that's what
Yeah.
you do. And it's
That's what
really
we do. Yeah.
right. And so it was really so thoughtful and caring and generous, and nobody ever thinks twice about that, which is wonderful.
Yeah. And you would do that for someone, and you wouldn't think twice about it. You would be like, well, why wouldn't I do that? And that's the thing. I think that's why I usually ask, what do your coworkers think, or what do they know? Because unless they've maybe even come to a race,
Hmm.
they don't understand. Number one, yes, it's dangerous, but you're safer probably doing that at however fast you go than driving from here through Denver,
Absolutely right.
because people are on their phones and they're doing all those things. And at least if you're going down the track, there's only usually one other car. You're down.
Well, and everyone is there for one reason,
Yes.
to drive. And so
Yeah.
heads are up, everyone's looking. And so that's the experience. And so,
Right.
yeah, I agree with you. On the road, you don't know you don't even know if a person's driving the car anymore. There's cars
No,
driving.
that scares the heck out of me. I can just tell you. Yeah, for sure. My youngest two daughters live in Phoenix, and we've seen some of those they were prototypes at the time, but we've seen some of those cars that have the little thing on the top,
Hmm.
and there was a guy in the passenger seat, but there was no, I don't know, they must have been testing or whatever. But I'm
Hmm.
like, yeah, no, I'm too much of a control freak that I don't want some contraption driving
Yeah.
my car. No thanks.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. Well, and I like to drive too, so it's
Yeah.
more fun to be doing it in the first place.
Absolutely, for sure. So I know you're very busy. Your son's graduating high school or college?
High school.
High school.
Hmm.
So busy with your son, busy with your job, busy with racing. Do you have any free time? And if so, what do you do when you're not racing?
Well, no, there's no free time. There's never free time, but time is just allotted to do other things that are fun. I love to go scuba diving. Our family, it's interesting because scuba diving is very much like racing. It's an equipment heavy sport and requires a lot of safety and prep. And the interesting thing is that through diving, we have met some amazing people and other families who are also racers. We have some of our best friends in the whole world. They're really our family. John and Beth Burkhart are on the East Coast, and so they're racing. Their son now has grown up in karting, and now he's racing. So it's two generations
Uh
of
huh.
SCCA now. And so Morgan, when they're coming out for Kai's graduation, we're also going to put Morgan in my Porsche Cayman, and run, see if we can get him into. I'll be in the racers test and tune, and then he'll be in the DE group, so he can get out and drive the Porsche as well. So he's going to help participate when we go to Nebraska. So diving is a passion. It's really interesting because it's super quiet compared to super loud.
Right.
But one of the great things in both that I love is that really no one's talking to you, and it's very experiential, and you can just be in that moment. You can be
Hmm.
at one with your car and the track, or be underwater and
Right.
just breathing and just enjoying all of the
Yeah.
sea life too. So it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. And it's kind of the yin and yang, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Of
Exactly.
balance. That's how I see that. So, do you race in a particular series? Do you race for a championship, or do you just pick and choose what races you want to do or how they work out with your schedule?
Yes, yes, yes. It really has to do with kind of, and I imagine any team who's running a car, it's like, when is the car running? Because it's always got something that you're fixing. So trying to run series, and what I try and do each year is try and pick a series that I can kind of commit to, like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and so I'm gonna commit, and then, like, for example, in 2019, I did SCCA, and I did everything SCCA, and then I patchworked, NASA and
Hmm.
PCA. And then 2020, I did some PCA but was doing some more NASA. Last year was kind of a really patchwork of a year. I am also a skier, and so you can't live in the Rocky Mountains and not ski.
Right.
So skiing, and my ski came off, and I took a swan dive down the mountain. I broke a bunch of ribs and cracked my chest, and had a pretty good head injury with a concussion. And so last year was just, it took me till the end of the season to really get back into the race car comfortably. This season, cars prepped and ready. We just started the PCA Mid America Series, so we're running that, and then we'll also try and get SCCA and NASA going. And we've talked about maybe trying to go to the WRL enduro race at VIR to try and get some track time for that, because the runoffs for SCCA are at VIR. So it'd be nice to do some track time
Yeah.
ahead. So
And
that's
I
something
hear
I'm
that track is beautiful.
exactly. And we've talked about trying to get out there, and certainly it's just so much of a challenge to be able to get the whole rig out there. And with my work schedule, it's interesting because for a lot of people, they can just take off of work. But I'm a plastic surgeon. I do both cosmetic and reconstructive, but a lot of it is breast cancer. And
Oh,
so, you can't just cancel people's cancer surgeries. So,
no.
trying to tiptoe through the busy OR schedule to get that, it's
Yeah.
really challenging. So it's really just trying to, do what's best for patients, and then do what the schedule will allow
Right.
as much as possible.
That
So
has to be tricky for sure.
it is. And it's interesting because patients certainly don't understand why I would want to do this, and then
Hmm.
racers certainly don't understand why I would want to do anything else other than race.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm a breast cancer survivor.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah. So, gosh, 24 years.
That's exciting.
Uh-huh.
That's
Yeah.
exciting.
So that's always a good thing to be able to say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
exciting. Well,
So
congratulations.
tell me about your car. How fast does it go? What color is it? What's your number? Tell me about your car.
Well, so the car is a 2009 Porsche Cayman. It originally came stock and then was modified. The gentleman who owned it before I did bought it brand new as a street car, and then totally ripped it apart and did all the work.
Oh my.
Yeah, and so he set the car up, which was fabulous. And then we took it over. My first race car, my street cars had been 911s, Porsche 911s, and so my first race car was a 1984 Porsche 911, and
Okay.
I wanted to have that car because there was no big brother and there's no computers and no assist, and so she did every dumb thing I told her to do perfectly. But it really, it forces you to develop your racecraft at a lower horsepower, which I
Yeah.
think is really critical because I think, learning how to maneuver the car well is important. Learning how to recover from situations also is
Right.
really key. And so then we transferred and went. I enjoyed that a lot, but I had driven a mid-engine car and said, "Wow, this is so much different not having the engine so far in the back."
Yeah.
And it was much more balanced. And so switching to that, the number is 823, which is our wedding anniversary.
Okay.
So we like that. And then the wrap has changed multiple times. So the car originally came in a red color, and then we wrapped it in. It's been a lightning storm. It's been black, like a black with multicolored spider web. Right now, the wrap, our sponsor has been with Sam's Tours out of Palau, Indonesia, one of the dive operators, and the Palau Marine Sanctuary. And so
Okay.
it's a shark sanctuary. So the car is all sharks, which is really,
Oh, that's cool.
there's a big, huge ray on top and all kinds of stuff. And the print of it is a Napoleon Ross, which is a fish that is, very common in that area, which is really cool because it's a teal color
Oh,
with
yeah.
like iridescent yellow worked in it. So it's a really fun car. And, all the wraps that I've had have been really fun, but this one I've enjoyed because it's provoked so much conversation.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, and the kids who come to the track, the little ones aren't necessarily knowing. They know that they're at a racetrack, but they're not really knowing as much. But it doesn't matter the age of anyone. Everyone knows what the marine life are and sharks,
Uh-huh.
and the kids love to come in. And so, we have the kids come and get in the car and take pictures with them, and it's been so fun to be able to talk about it. And it's interesting. I didn't realize how many divers were in the racing community,
Really?
and it's interesting because we have many people who have come up and they'll just go Napoleon Ross, and I've got
Uh,
and there's a thresher shark, which is not a common shark to see, here, and so like divers will recognize a lot of the intricacies. You're like, you're a diver,
uh-huh.
so it's been wonderful because I've met so many people and had so many wonderful conversations with that wrap. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And I would guess that the company that sponsored you has probably really done well with that on the car because it is such a conversation piece and
mhm.
it gives you more chance to talk about them than if it was honestly Pepsi or Coca-Cola or somebody because we all know what that is,
Right,
right?
exactly, exactly. Well, and the thing is that the breadth of audience that can have a conversation it's so big and it's so global that it really works. I think it has been the easiest thing to talk about with so
Yeah.
many different people. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So do you have a most memorable moment in your racing career?
There's lots of memorable moments, and the funny thing is, we always think about, the wins are great and all the exciting driving things. You always think about those things, but I think the most memorable ones are always like when something goes, in the
Yes. Yeah.
crapper fast,
Yeah.
and how you get out of that. And we had that. A couple years ago. I was racing in Hastings, Nebraska, and the hood pins hadn't gotten fastened. So I had, the team had missed it. I went through grid, and all the grid missed it. And even the corner workers, I later heard that they were talking about it on the radio and saying, that hood looks like it's bouncing. And they never black flagged me, which is kind of a bummer. Well, not kind of, it was a bummer. And so on the fifth lap of the race, in a 120-mile-an-hour turn, the hood just smashes up, takes out the windshield, comes over, hits the roof, indents the roof. And then you're in this turn, and we're in all this big pack of everyone, and you can't see, and you've got to control the car. And, everyone asked me, like, oh my God, did you completely freak out? And it's like, who has time to freak out?
That's what I was going to say. You don't have time to freak out. You've got to figure out what to do. So what
Exactly.
did you do?
I drove the turn. You just drive the turn. You do what you do. And when you prepare for a race and you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to visualize the track, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is where I want to hit, I want to come out at this speed, I want to brake here. So you're always thinking about that. And then you've driven the track, so you know the track, and you have a sense of spatial awareness of where you are in the track. And now it's drive the turn, do what you do.
Yeah.
And more or less what's there, and control the car, and then get yourself slowed. Everyone else is going to see you. Like, this isn't anything that no one's not going to see, and everyone's going to get away from you, and then control the car. And that's exactly what we did. And the interesting thing, I'm very proud about this, because my data cameras, it doesn't really show because it's all black, because it's smashed out and everything, so you can't really see. But the drivers who were behind me, sent me copies of their video, and it's startling to watch. And I can see how for them, they were freaking out, like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Is she going to be okay?
Right.
And then afterwards, like, oh my God, I can't believe you're okay.
Yeah.
And to watch that in their position, I felt all those same things watching that. But in the moment, it's just drive the turn.
Yeah, and it happens so fast. Like you said,
Right.
you don't have time to overthink it.
Yeah.
You just have to react as best you can. And
right. There's no emotion to it. It's simply just do what you do. And it was, considering everything, I was fine, and the car needed some repairs, and no one else got injured.
Yeah.
I didn't hit a car. I was
Another
worried,
car.
do I hit another car? Do I hit the corner workers?
Right.
Because you can't really see where you're at. And so just like use all your mirrors, and you kind of can barely move your head because you're strapped in, but use all the cues that you have. And there's like this 2 centimeters of space between your base of where your hood was and where it's sitting now, so you're like trying to creep down into your harness
to look through that hole.
look through that little hole, and basically drive with your side view mirrors. But it was good. I really came away from that very proud, in that handled that crisis very smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody went home safely, and the car was repairable, and it was a good day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Somebody was helping to watch over you that day.
I think so. I'm sure of that.
Yeah. So who works on the car, like when it needs things done? Do you have people that help you? And when you go to the races, like, do you have a crew chief? Is it you? Is it your family? Tell me a little bit about how that works.
It kind of depends on where we're going and what we're doing. Typically, locally, we tend to crew ourselves. We have a group. We've had several mechanics who have worked with us and traveled with us. 3R Racing here in Denver is taking care of the car right now. And it just depends. This was local when we went to Topeka, and so I have a couple of friends who also run in this race, so we all crew for each other. And so, in fact, we were ready to go out, and my pal couldn't get started, and I'm in my full race here, like running to the truck to get jumper cables so we can jump his car. So I've got to get out, I've got to get on grid, but I've got to get him on grid. And so we crewed for everyone, but we do have people who do travel with us. I did in 2019, I did no, I'm sorry, 2018, we went and drove in the International Grand Prix of Central America. And so the car was shipped down to El Salvador and we went down there. So I did take a crew down there. And just because you're in a foreign country
Right.
and you just don't have access to everything. So bring what you can and then have someone who can MacGyver whatever you can't.
Yes,
And
exactly.
and so that's been great. 3R has staff that they can send out. It's interesting because the more that you get to know everyone, it's a very small community, and
Hmm.
so I had a friend who went to Sebring. And was there and then went on to Daytona, and he was a spectator. He's not a racer at all. And so several of my pals were racing, at the 24-hour in
Uh-huh.
Daytona. And so I said, "Oh yeah, here's my pals." And the next thing I know, he's with a picture with the guy who has crewed for us. And so everyone is, they're on
Yeah.
IMSA, Pirelli Cup, all of the different ones. And so the crews become very family like for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true, I think, in all the series.
Hmm.
Yes, they're trying to beat the guy next to him on pit road and get everybody, and that's what their job is. But when push comes to shove, it's a big family. Racing is just a big family. And it's funny how you when I first got into this in 2017, when I founded the Women's Motorsports Network, I was looking to connect with other women in motorsports.
Hmm.
I was not looking to have a podcast or do an online magazine or any of those things, but it all just kind of evolved.
Right.
And so and I thought, okay, I know there's a fair amount of women in motorsports, but I had no idea the scope of the women. And then, at one point I was kind of like, wow, there's so many. But now that I've been in it 5 years, I find that, oh, Lisa knows Mary and Mary knows me. But,
Right.
and it's so much really smaller community than what you think it is,
Right.
because it's people know each other and they watch and they keep track of other people that race other types of cars. And so it's really it's been such a blessing to me in my life to be able to be involved with women in motorsports. It just really has. So
Well,
you
one of the
go
things
ahead.
I've enjoyed here in Denver, the Porsche Club has been, I think, really stands above anything that I know of to support women in driving. And so we have here what's called the PCA Ladies Day. And so we've been doing this, oh my God, I can't even count the number of years, like decades, multiple decades. And, it started off kind of the same as many clubs do, of just a few women trying to mentor other women. And, now it's grown. I think it's probably one of the biggest women's motorsport events that we do. And it's a novice based event, but we typically can pull 70 to 75 women
Wow.
who are the majority are novice drivers, and it's to show them. We put them on the track. We put an instructor in the car with them. They're driving their car, so they know, and they're much more comfortable. They're not timid. They don't feel like, I'm on a racetrack and I'm going to get run over and everyone's going to be mad at me. And this way, we do it at the state troopers track, which is even more fun because there's lots of things to teach and learn there. But, year after year after year, you go through and you see all these women who are, just driving, and that's that first step into high
Hmm.
performance driving. And then the next thing, they're doing a DE, and then wow, they really enjoyed that and they have the bug, and now
Yeah.
okay, now they're going to get their license and start racing, which has been wonderful. And even through that, as we have come together, they try and take all the novices and then everyone through the different areas of expertise and try and put everybody together so that you can see,
Yeah.
like, these are just real people who
Yeah.
are having fun at different levels, and you too can do this. but you get to see some other folks like Renee Brinkerhoff.
I
And
know Renee.
yeah, Renee, you just look at Renee, she's driving this 356 all over the planet. And it's just
Isn't that the most crazy, amazing?
epic.
So she's going to be on the show, but we've had some, connection. I mean, it's hard. She is busy, gone all the time. But
Exactly.
Christina, I think it's her daughter,
Hmm.
that schedule. So we're working at getting a time when we can both do it. But see now, right there, we both know the same person. So
Right, exactly. And you look at Renee's 356 and, you know, she's got a snow, these snow tracks on,
I know.
and this is what she's doing. So,
And it's interesting because I got around racing short track at asphalt dirt racing back in the, I would say, 80s. We had some friends that raced, and then my kids started getting in sports, so then we got away from that because we were at baseball and softball and all those things. And then when my son graduated from high school in 1996, he took his graduation money and bought a race car against his mother's knowledge or permission. And it's a long story, but that's how we got back into racing. And so, you start with that kind, and then, oh, there's women drag racers, and oh, there's rally racing, and there's airplane racing, and I'd never heard of what she was doing, that kind of racing. And
hmm
there's so many things out there that unless you really get yourself involved,
right,
you
right,
would never know.
right.
And
Yeah,
that,
there's
yeah,
it, and it's funny because when people ask, they hear that I'm racing, they're like, "Oh, what kind of racing do you do? Do you like run marathons, or are you
yeah,
biking?" You're like,
bicycle. I know,
driving a
absolutely.
race car."
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So we kind of talked about, a bad day at the racetrack. But when you have a bad day at the racetrack, how do you deal with that?
Oh. I get mad, and then I go drink a margarita, and then I strategize about, what could I have changed?
Hmm.
What couldn't I have changed? And how much does it cost to change what I
Change.
can?
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know,
Yeah.
but it's definitely an up and down kind of thing, because there's just moments where you just like, I can do better, and I know I can do better, and why am I not doing better? And so I think there's a
Hmm.
lot of self-criticism that goes with that. Some of it can be, I really needed to do this on the car and I didn't. But I really find, it's your own performance, I think, is the most critical. You just critique yourself over
Yep.
and over and over again, and like, if I'd hit that turn,
Yeah.
or we were talking about this, this weekend, like, I shifted in, I was trying to go from four to, you know from 4 to 3, and I went 4 to 5, and I lost my
Wow.
horsepower, and people passed me in this critical turn, and that was a position that was lost. And
Yeah.
so I think it's trying to decide what you want out of it. And I think the other thing too, which I think my family is really good about, is like, are you having fun? Thank you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
I had a young man who was actually my son's best friend. They were both named Ben, and they had similar lives, growing, as they grew up, challenges, things that they gave their mothers, gray hairs. And and we law and Ben said to me one time, he drove one of our race cars, and he said, when it stops being fun, then you need to quit.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what we say and I say, because I'm always trying to find, the joy in it.
Yes.
And the thing is that when the car is on and I'm on, there is nothing like it. It's just it's pure bliss.
Yeah.
And so it's so nice to have that.
Hmm.
Um, That's our German Shepherd and his squeaky toy.
I was gonna say that sounds familiar. I have a dog that likes a squeaky toy too. It's fine.
um, yeah, no, it's finding the joy. But I do say that, the risk reward is always ever present. And so when you're not completely in love with this, it's time to stop
Yeah.
because the risk is always there.
Right.
And I do. And, there's moments where I'm like, that's it. This is, I'm done. And then, I sleep on it. And
Mhm.
then the next morning, it's like, I have to fix this. I've got to get this and I need to
Yeah.
get this. And, I think, we always want to perform well. And
Right.
that's not, it's just not going to happen every time. And
No.
I think, one of the most remarkable moments I think in my evolution of that is, we were at the Nationals with WRL at Coda. And so we ran Saturday all day. It was a good race. It was Sunday, and it was a great day. The weather was perfect. And, I drove the car out of the garages and we were gridded and then ready to go, and the car would not turn on. And it was like we drove to the grid, there was nothing wrong, and there was a problem with the ignition. And with Porsche, it's part of their anti-theft, and so you have to replace an entire thing, which no one's going to have at the track for that.
No.
There's just wasn't available. And so, I sat there and I watched everybody take the green, sitting in the grid, going like, "Come on, come on, come on, come on, we got to go!" And finally coming to the realization that this was not going to happen. And here we
Mhm.
were at nationals, and it wasn't going to happen. And I was so disappointed. And the team, because the enduros aren't single person sports; they're multi person, and everyone was just upset by it. And I came away from that, and here it is. It's like 10:30 in the morning, and the race is going, and everything is happening, and I'm not part of it, and our team's not part of it, and I'm disappointed. But I'm sitting there, and everyone is like, "How can you be so calm about this?" And I just said, "You know what? I'm standing in the pits of the finest Formula One track in the U.S.
Mhm.
Um, I got to drive this track. Had a beautiful day yesterday. It was a wonderful drive. We had a good day. The car performed well. The car is not injured in any way. I'm not injured in any way.
Yeah.
I get to spend time with my family, and I'll take an earlier flight home and be ready for work tomorrow. And putting that all into perspective, like I get to do all of those
Yeah.
things, and it's not I have to do and I couldn't do, but I got to.
Yeah.
And it just kind of changes your whole mindset about that. And then it takes, I think, all those setbacks and keeps it in perspective.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of have also a little bit of a jaded perspective because what I do for a living,
Yeah.
I see people who are in really bad places and
Mhm.
difficult health situations, and people die. And so, here I am, I get to do all these things,
Right.
and life is good, and I'm okay, the car's okay, everyone's okay, and there's another day to do what we love. And
Yeah.
so it always keeps that into perspective.
Yeah, I would think that what you see as in your profession probably does keep you more grounded as far as this isn't everything in life.
Right.
This is
Right.
just one of the fun things I get to do.
Right, that's exactly right. And I
Yeah.
think some people approach it of like, it's ride or die. And it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. It's you get
No.
to do this and you get to enjoy this. And really where you see it is when people have to quit racing. They don't choose. It's
Yeah.
chosen for them for many reasons. And that's a hard pill to swallow, and that's
Mhm.
where it's hard. And like you get to show up to do that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a gift.
It is. So what's your favorite thing about being a race car driver? Now, it could be something on the track or off.
The fun thing is I can go into a room and talk to anybody, and they are just, they love talking about racing, and they
Hmm.
may not know much about it, but they become, and it's a wonderful topic that is, it's an equalizer for all people, in that you
Hmm.
don't, you don't have to have any experience, and people know what racing is, and you can
Right.
have a lovely conversation about that, and it touches so many people, and inevitably someone knows somebody or has a
Yeah.
family member, and it's just a lovely, it's just a lovely topic to always be able to talk about, no matter where you go.
Yeah.
And it, I think it just makes people so kind, and it's really interesting because people then are like, they want to know where you're at and where you're going. I was in a meeting with a website group today, and talking, and just happened to be talking about racing, and next thing I know, they're planning a trip to Nebraska to come watch us race. And I think that I think
Yeah.
that's exciting. And I think the fun thing too, because Netflix has had, Drive
Hmm.
to Survive, and I think that there's much more exposure to Formula One
Yeah.
now, and so there's a lot of people who have a lot more knowledge
Right.
than they did, and so they feel very comfortable talking about it, and now they have so much more interest, and so it's interesting because their questions aren't like, well, that must be fun for you, to like, oh my gosh, and how much are your tires, and
Yeah.
and what do you do, and who crews, and
Yeah.
what happens if you go off, and all,
Hmm.
like, they have much more intimate knowledge, so
Right.
it's much more public, which is great.
Yes, absolutely. That, even for me, and I'm involved in racing, but there's no F1 women driving, but there
Right.
are quite a few women, right
Hmm.
behind the scenes, not very far. But even for me, and I knew, a fair amount of about F1 without ever having been to an F1 race and that, but I knew names and drivers and some of that. But that show was really interesting because I liked the stories. I like
Hmm.
seeing, who are they behind the scenes and that. And that's what I enjoyed about that show the most for sure. So
Well, I think it really shows, each of the intimacies of each of these people. Where I
yeah.
think, when you watch F1, you're watching a race,
Yeah.
and you're understanding the intricacies of racing, but you're not really seeing all the behind the scenes that goes
Yeah.
on. And really, I think, Netflix really shows that it's not some one person showing up and getting in a car.
No.
There's always, a tribe.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's true of any level of racing really. I we have a asphalt track here close where my granddaughters race, and we know a lot of people that race there. But there's a lot of people that just pay their money, come in, sit down, watch the race, go home, and they never think about that those teams were there at noon and the race didn't start till 7. How much the tires cost. I think my granddaughter said a set of tires for her street stock car are almost $700.
Oh, I long for those days.
Yeah. But for a team of that size,
Yeah,
that's a lot,
yeah.
and so I always encourage people, who's your favorite driver? Reach out to them, ask them if they can come and just be out of the way, but in your pits just one night. You come when they come to the track that day, and
Hmm.
you see what it costs them to get into the pits and what it and you have an entirely different appreciation for any kind of racing if you did that.
Yes, absolutely. The cost financially, the cost emotionally, the cost
Hmm.
to your family life,
Yeah,
and, to your sanity sometimes, but, in time, just the
lots of time.
lots of time.
Yeah, and your family has to be on board because there's no way that you can be involved in racing and your family's not on board. It just doesn't work. It might work for a little while, but eventually it's not going to work because racing is a sport that gets in your blood more so than I think any other sport,
Yeah.
and you can't just easily turn that off. And
It's
so,
so hard because, we do see people every now and again who they're going alone, and it's very difficult. And then I see, there's some people who are married and their family is not supportive, and you can really tell it's a
Hmm.
tremendous conflict, because it's
Yeah.
this love that they have that they can't share. And it really does, it really impacts
Yeah.
family a lot. And we've always talked about this, and I say this after every race. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I could not do this without you. Everyone,
Right.
whoever is involved, thank you so much,
Yeah.
with gratitude. But also, when we go to bed at night, it's like, when if you get to the point where you can't do this anymore, you need to let me know, because this is a we. It's not a me. And
Yes.
I can't do this, nor do I even want to do this by myself. And
Hmm.
so I want to enjoy this,
Yeah.
and perform well and do well and share that, whatever, the ups and downs, I want to share that with you and have you be part of that. But when it stops being, you know, fun, and, when you can't do this anymore, I can't do this. And,
Yeah.
when I'm not having fun, we can't do this anymore either. It's just out of respect,
Yeah.
for that other person, because it's not fair to them. It's a
Yeah.
tremendous accomplishment to do this together, but it's also a lot of burden too. And so you
Yeah.
want to make sure that you're getting everything out of it, and it's not giving you all you want. There's plenty of other wonderful things that can do that. Uh,
Yeah.
and
Everybody
life
has
is
to be
short.
on the same page for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, life
Yeah.
is short, and so you don't
Oh,
want to waste
yes.
that time. So
So, what's your goal for your racing career? Is this what have you got to where you want to be? This is what you want to do? Do you
no,
have any
I mean, no,
aspirations?
no, because there's always the next level, but the constraints are always financial. So it was interesting when I was in El Salvador. I was the only woman racing in the Grand Prix, and so there was a lot of media about that. And I was, on TV and
Yeah.
podcasts and webcasts and on the newspaper, and everyone. It was really interesting, because everyone was so concerned about us going to El Salvador and safety. And I had no worries, because I'd been there before, because we did mission work there. And so, as it turns out, the year that I went was a year that they had a massive earthquake. And it was just a very short time right before we arrived with all the cleft palate teams. And so it was a mess to be, and we had to redo everything to get, we weren't at the hospital that we would normally be at. And, you're trying to take care of all these kids, and,
Yeah.
you've got 300 kids that have walked for days on foot to come see you. And so the word had spread quite a bit about that. And so they were asking me, how do you feel about, being here? Are you nervous? And you're a woman. I'm like, why would I be nervous? I love El Salvador. I've been here before. I've taken care of the people here. And so that was wonderful. Um, but you just, like, what's the hardest question that they're going to ask? And it was
Hmm.
really interesting. The hardest question that I got asked, and I wasn't prompted, so I didn't know it was coming. They said, well, you're a plastic surgeon, and you're a race car driver. If you had to pick one,
Oh, that's not fair.
what would you do? And I said, well, that would be easy. I would quit my practice. I would sell my practice, and I would become, a professional race car driver, assuming I could do that, skill wise.
Yeah.
But then I would travel internationally, and then I would do mission work in every place that I was traveling.
There you go.
So then I
There
could
you
do
go.
that, and that would be, if I could do anything I ever wanted, that would be, amazing, because then I could race wherever I wanted.
Hmm.
I could dive, because I would be internationally diving,
Right.
and then taking care of, patients without the constraints of healthcare, of, like, money
Yeah.
and insurance and
Yeah.
OR schedules and supplies. Of just,
Right.
I could just, go and do what I do, and for the love of doing it, and
Yeah.
everyone benefits. And I'd get to race. And
Now that was the perfect answer because it's the best of everything.
right, right.
Because especially, I see where, let's forget about the racing for a minute. Being able to volunteer and help people who otherwise wouldn't have access to that kind of help
Hmm.
would be probably more fulfilling than winning any race.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. And walking away from a kid that you can't help and knowing that that might have been their only opportunity in their entire life,
Hmm.
it's just it's heartbreaking. And so it makes such a big difference. One of the guys who traveled with us the year before, there was a man kind of lurking in the bushes, and
Mm.
that everyone, our American way was kind of like creeped out, like, who's this guy? We have all these children here, so who's the guy in the bushes? And so
Right.
they sent somebody out and they brought him, and he's an older man who had an unrepaired cleft lip and palate. He's in his 50s. And so, you say to the person, like, so why do you want to do this now? Because now, like, it's not a baby. I mean, it's a man. And he says, because I've never kissed my wife.
Oh,
And so those are the moments that, you can't, you'll never get anywhere. And to help people like that, it's epic to be able to,
yeah.
offer that. And again, a lot of times these communities are so limited in their resources
Hmm.
and staffing available to help these kids, that here we kind of take for granted,
Yeah.
because all this stuff is diagnosed on ultrasound before babies are born, and they're
Yeah.
repaired and they're out into society before anyone even knew there was an issue. And
Yeah.
that's just not the way it is everywhere. And so it's nice to be able
No.
to go in and help in those ways.
Oh yeah, that has to be a feeling that you can't describe to people, knowing that you've helped change somebody's life for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and when you have a baby who has a cleft lip and a palate, and they can't feed, and then you fix them and they smile back at you. It's there's no price on that. It's
Yeah,
just
there's not. So, I think we've covered this question really, but I always try to ask it. How have you or do you hope to make an impact on the motorsports industry?
well, I think encouraging women, number one, and encouraging young people too, because I think one of the things that this is a generational sport, and
Hmm.
so there has to be younger people coming along. So always trying to support young people, going and talking to kids, especially, but also talking to women too, of like, this isn't just a man sport, an older
Hmm.
man sport, because
Right.
I think a lot of people think it's an older man sport because you have to have a ton of money to get into it. It's not cheap, but certainly there's multi levels that are financially doable.
Yeah.
And I think giving people the understanding of what motorsports really entails, I think is great. And the thing I love to do is get kids in the car and have them. I'll take them in the pits and I'll let them drive on the steering wheel and let them hear the engine.
Hmm.
And they think that's nuts. They're crazy.
Yeah.
That's wow. That's amazing. And so the thing is that you never know that one single moment where you've touched
Hmm.
someone's life that will
Yeah.
have a lasting ripple effect, and you have no idea that happened. And people will come back and say, well, you told me this 10 years ago, and this is what's happened. And I didn't even remember that
Right.
conversation, because to me it felt like, yeah, it was just another day. But for each person, they take away something special. And
Yeah.
then I think that means a lot to me, to be able to offer those little bits to each
Yeah.
person.
And it isn't just kids. I mean, I would think that I did an interview with a lady, she was almost 60 years old, and her dream had all her parents had been involved in racing, her dad or whoever, and her dream had always been to drive a street stock, at a local track. It wasn't anything. She didn't want to be the next cup champion,
Right.
but her dad always said, "Oh no, you can't do that." And then her husband, "No, you can't do that." And she finally, I think her husband had passed and her kids were grown, and she says, "I'm doing this."
Right.
And she got a car and she got some people to help her, and out she went.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think, there's women that would like to go into the garages or and see those cars or sit in those cars who would get just as much excitement from it, I think, if
Mm-hmm.
they had the opportunity. One of my goals, um, down the road here, because we had this in the process and then COVID stopped everything, is to have events at racetracks to invite women who have never been to a race.
Mm-hmm.
Their husbands go, their sons go, but they think, that's it's not for me. To
Right.
invite them to a race, take them through the garage, take them, wherever, have a nice event for them with some women that are involved in motorsports, so that they can see that, like, maybe you don't like this kind of racing, but you would like this kind. And I think unless you get them to the track, they
Mm-hmm.
have no idea what it's like. And that's true of anybody, man, woman, kid, whatever. um, once you get them to the track to see a race of any kind, they're gonna go to more than one.
Right, right. Well, and that's a great thing. It would be so wonderful to do all kinds of, demos of, like, drag racing and autocross and dirt track, just to see all
Yeah.
the fun stuff. And, maybe they take a ride,
Right.
themselves. Maybe they don't want to drive, but maybe they want to, you put and like when we were in El Salvador, we put all the press in all of our cars and we were lapping them, and their perception of what they think racing is, and then they get out of the car and, like, whoa, this is
Whoa, yeah.
this is really
Absolutely.
awesome. And so I think the more exposure that you do, I think, and
Yeah.
that's why I think our ladies event has been so successful, because it's just creeping in
Yeah.
a little bit more, so that, hey, let's take this first step and let's get you on the track and let's get you going fast, because we know you're going fast on the highway.
Right. Right.
Let's get you a little bit more confident and competent to maneuver your
Hmm.
car at high speeds. And then, hey, now we're going to be at the track.
Yeah.
Let's go to the track and let's do something like that. And it's been fun because you get to see all kinds. It's interesting. You get so accustomed to race cars, but when you do events like that, yeah, people show up with their car, with whatever car that they have, and they just
Yeah.
have to pass their tech. And as long as their car meets tech, then whatever you have is whatever you have. And it's fantastic to go and see the love that they have for their cars, and have them have a place to be able to express it, in
Hmm.
that, like, well, it's not a NASCAR. No, it's not a NASCAR. It's your VW Bug, which is amazing. And let's go
Right.
fast in your car that you
Yeah.
love. And so I think I think it can develop so many wonderful things. And
Yeah.
you develop this huge network. And again, motorsports isn't a set of single drivers. They're just epic
No.
teams. And so
Yeah.
you can create multiple teams and interests. And now you think about kids growing up, and talking to all of the young kids about motorsports and all the different things. And
Hmm.
you can go, I'm in Colorado, you go to school of mines and you can become an automotive engineer, and then you can
Right.
end up at
Yeah.
F1.
Yeah, for sure.
And and that's not gender specific. And
No.
so it's not race specific, it's not gender
No.
specific. It's whoever has the interest and the smarts to back them to get to wherever they want to go in whatever interest that they have. So
Hmm.
I love that.
I do too. And motorsports has so many opportunities as far as careers.
Hmm.
Yes, the drivers get the attention and the crew chiefs and that, but there's so many opportunities that if you love racing and you love to be a part of motorsports, you can find a way to be a part. When there's
Right.
there's a place for you if you look and try to get there. So yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. No, I agree.
Well, I tell you what, we've talked for an hour and it doesn't feel like it. Oh my gosh, I've really enjoyed talking with you tonight. Learned so much about you and what you're doing, and that's what I love. I love to learn about the ladies that I interview and where they're going and what they're doing. So, if I wanted to follow where you're going to be racing or that, how would I do that? Is it social media or where should I go?
Usually we run everything through our medical practice site. So Ravala.com is our website. And then we're on Ravala, Dr. Lisa Hunsicker on
Okay.
Instagram and Facebook as well. And so pretty much our patients are they want to know where I'm at too. They want to know I'm making it home to do
Yeah.
surgery,
Yeah.
but they
Sure.
also they love to follow and keep track of that as well. So we have
Okay.
just combined it into a multi-site because I like to do that so that everyone who's following the racing, I am a big advocate for breast cancer awareness, and so
Good.
it helps us educate everyone as well too. So it cross pollinates really well.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you're doing that for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Well, I is there anything I haven't talked to you about that we should have talked about?
No, I don't think so. I think we pretty much we covered everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And when is your next time that you're going to be racing?
It will be next month. My son graduates high school on the 17th, which is a Wednesday. And so the 18th, we head to Nebraska, and then we'll test
Okay.
and tune on the 19th, and then race on the 20th and 21st in
Okay.
Hastings. So
Okay.
we'll be out there. And
All
the
right.
Burkharts will be with us. So we'll have Morgan
Nice.
as well, from West Virginia, and having them out. And we're trying to take him to the dark side
Yeah,
to Porsche.
that's I know. I get that part, I live on the dark side too, and I absolutely love it, and I love the people that are on this dark side with me, so I'm okay with
Uh-huh.
that.
Yeah, we're trying to give him the taste of Porsche. That way, Beth and John can scream at us. And now he's going to want a Porsche
There you go.
race car.
She can scream at you that you got her husband to want a Porsche. For sure. Well, Lisa, I've really enjoyed this. I know you've worked all day, and I appreciate that you took the time tonight to record
Absolutely.
this with me. I have really enjoyed speaking with you, and I would love to come and watch you race sometime. So I'm going to be watching a little closer where you're going to be, and if you're somewhere close to where I can get to, I'm going to try to come and watch because I would love
Yeah,
to
we'd
do
love
that.
to have you. And it would be fun to have you come out to do the Ladies' Day event too, because
I
I
was
think
thinking of
a
that.
lot.
And when is that usually held?
It's usually in the summer.
Okay.
I don't. Let me look and see if I've got the dates set.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I was thinking that might be a really good event for me to attend. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the
Okay.
2023 date, but it's usually in the summer.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll get you the dates for that
All right.
because that would be great. It was wonderful. They had a big spread in the Porsche National magazine, and just the number of women that we pull.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful.
Yeah. I'm
I
gonna.
think you'd have a great time.
Oh yeah, I'm sure I'd have a great time. So, and I know a couple people that live in Denver, so that would be good. So
Yeah, yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, Lisa, thank you again so much. I hope you have a great week and
Thank you.
congratulations on getting your son through high school. That's not always the easiest thing to do. I had 4 children, 3 daughters and a son, and I managed to get all of them through. So without going completely gray, but I had good kids. So
Yeah.
enjoy your time with them, enjoy your
Thank you.
racing, and I'll be following you. And if I can ever do anything to help or promote or do what help what you're doing, all you have to do is reach out.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night. Have a good one.